Hey there, hi there, ho there, hello there, and welcome back to another exciting edition of the Cardinal Couple Radio Hour podcast, where we discuss the joy and excitement of UofL women's athletics. Certainly an exciting week for Louisville women's basketball, some other events going on as well. We'll get into all those today as we have a crew of three in here today. Yes, we're one up from last week as we were able to convince Jared not to go out and build snowmen and join the broadcast. He joins Jeff and I for the show today. So have a lot of fun stuff planned for you all on the broadcast as we review some things for you. Let's go ahead and kind of just I think start with the guys here. Jared, what like a 5 minute drive home for you last night in this weather? It was pretty easy, right?
hmm I wish. It usually takes me about 30, 35 minutes getting home, and it took me a little bit over 90 minutes. And several factors. First, I thought the city was rather unprepared for what we knew was coming. And then, second, I think there was a lot of people that didn't need to be on the roads for non essential related reasons that were on the roads. And then you've got plenty of people who really just don't know how to drive in the snow and ice. And uh, to keep my rant short, it's just like, learn to drive in snow and ice before you get out there, or just stay at home.
That's the wisest idea of all. I had to make a necessary trip up to Walgreens to pick up a prescription, and that is usually like a 10-minute round trip for me at the most. Okay. Took me 40 minutes. There were cars. And of course, being the idiot I am, I went out at the height of the snow squall. And there were cars spun out everywhere. It was just, it was ridiculous. I was thinking to myself, when in the heck did I move to Boston? Holy cow, this is ridiculous. But got through it. No major damage. And able to join you today. Jeff, you even ran into a little bit of slickness this morning, sir, I understand, on your coffee trip.
Yeah, I went out to get my coffee, and it was 6 Mile Lane and Hersheyburn Parkway. That whole intersection was practically a solid sheet of ice. So if you're in the area, I would try to avoid that intersection right now. It come from at least a couple of different directions that I hit it, so it was that way. So, but other than that, it was really patchy this morning. Some parts of roads were fine, others were still like snow and ice covered. So yeah, just be careful. Keep an eye out ahead of what the conditions are up ahead of you, and keep your spacing and speeds a little lower than normal. You should be fine.
And just a little props maybe to our snow removal and salting crews here in the metro area. We do tend to complain about them sometimes. Well, why haven't they gotten our street? Why haven't they done this street and other? They've got a ton of area to cover on something that was, I think, a little bit unexpected for the amount that we did get here yesterday. So be patient with them as the temperatures warm up. A lot of this will melt down anyway and melt off. But they're just remember they're public employees, so give them the credence for that, if anything else, right? The time of the show where we normally get into a little scheduling and Twitter information. The good news is I don't have to do it this week. We're all happy about that, I'm sure. We're going to turn it over to Jared, who's taking a picture of everything he wants to talk about and is now going to read those. Right. So take it away, Mr. Anderson, sir.
Yeah, we'll go on and get into scheduling and Twitter. Already that kicking off early this morning was the Lenny Lyles Invitational for track and field. This is at their new indoor facility, the Norton Healthcare Sports and Learning Center. This is out off the corner of West Muhammad Ali Boulevard and South 30th Street. So it is a little bit of a drive from campus, but at least it's indoors, so you're going to be warm and dry and not having to deal with any of this crazy snow that we've got going on. So head on down there. It's free admission. Men's basketball tips off versus Duke downtown at the KFCM Center at noon with their new interim head coach. So we'll see how that goes. And then also at noon, it's going to be senior day for our swim and dive team. So the men and the women will both compete against Cincinnati here in town for their one final hurrah before we get into ACC and NCAA championships. Jeff and I actually got to get out there last weekend when they played Kentucky, so that was a good one. Moving ahead to tomorrow, Sunday, women's basketball has a 3 o'clock tip-off. So I know that the Go Card schedule originally listed it as noon or 4 for ACC Network. ESPN swooped in and said, we're taking this one instead. So they put us at 3 o'clock, but you can catch it on ESPN main channel if you can't get down to the Center. Nothing going on Monday for our women's sports to close out January. Nothing to start February. Actually, yes, we do have something to start February on Tuesday. Women's basketball has what I presume is that makeup game when they head down to Miami, down in Florida, for a 7 p.m. tip-off. That's ACC Network Extra, so that you'll only catch that one online. Moving ahead to Wednesday, February 2nd, nothing. Thursday, February 3rd, women's basketball stay on the road. They're going to head down to Clemson. We'll visit our buddy Arthur down there, and that's going to be a little bit earlier than some of our other times. This is 6 p.m., and it is slated for regional sports network. So depending on your cable provider, if you don't do cable at all, you may be a little SOL on that one. Next Friday, February 4th, track and field heads up north to South Bend, Indiana to begin the track at the, I believe it's pronounced the Mayo Invitational, MEYO, Mayo. Women's tennis will be at home. They host Ball State at 4 o'clock, and that should presumably be indoors at the Bass Road Tennis Center.
We would hope
and
so.
Hopefully, you never know what will happen with the weather. And then before we even hop on air on our podcast next week, track and field will continue day 2 of the Mayo Invitational at South Bend, Indiana. So plenty going on this week with women's sports, and before you know it, we've got softball and lacrosse are counting down their days before they start up, so we'll add those shortly. Kicking over to Twitter real quick, Case, who's not with us today, as he's got some, I believe, some renovations is what they're doing today. Tweets out his best case scenario, that is BST, no E in the word best for that one. Daryl, who is also out today, I think she got tickets to the basketball game, tweets out as Daryl Faust 4. Polly, who tweets out all sorts of UofL news and women's basketball news, tweets out as Cardinal Couple. Jeff's got a couple accounts. He's got his personal at Jeff McAdams and his UofL women's sports one that is at Card Couple Radio. And then myself, I'll tweet out as Mr. Anderson Jared. And 11:07, we're through scheduling and Twitter. We can move on to the main portion of the show.
Boy, that was just a rapid fire recap there, Jared.
Take that, Case.
I was taking notes because, yeah, it's a lot better than what I did on it. So good work indeed, sir. Good work. Even on the days that you can't be in here, we're still bringing you in for scheduling and Twitter. I don't care where you're at or what you're doing. If you have to do it from the middle of a swim meet or whatever's going on, you're still doing this.
I really thought about going down to the track and field and just doing it from there.
Yeah, well, I mean, that could be a possibility. I'm sure that I think Laura Cordy's down there. You may, Harmon, you may have been able to nail her and get a couple words out of her. You know, you never know. But should be fun down there at that Mason Dixon, or I didn't get that.
Lenny
right.
Lyles.
Lenny Lyles. What was I thinking? Mason Dixon's high school mostly. The Lenny Lyles Invitational down there. A nice regional crew of colleges coming in for that there. Hopefully the Cards would do well in that. I think the throwing event started at 10, and I'm sure one of my industrious young men here can see if there's any results in on the tosses and such yet for field events down there. We will kind of move on into the show, and we're going to obviously start it out with a little basketball. We're going to review the 2 games that have happened so far this week and then get into the upcoming Sunday match against Duke. Let's go back to Sunday. Jared wasn't there. He was rehearsing an address. Or no, you were actually performing an address, weren't you?
I wouldn't look too good in a dress, but a black suit definitely looked pretty good.
There you go. As long as you weren't wearing something that Katie had in the closet, we're fine with that. And hopefully that went well for you. We were at the KFC Center, Sonia and I watched the Cards take on Wake Forest, that school from Winston-Salem, who came in here and they haven't been having the best of the season. Just to kind of give you a brief idea on this one, they did give us a game in the first quarter. Very competitive. Actually held a 22-21 lead over us after 10 minutes. Louisville took a timeout. Coach Walls reminded them that defense is pretty good. Let's kind of play that a little bit. That would be fun. Louisville went on a 23-1 run in the second quarter. And did some things that they've done all year very successfully. Played suffocating defense and then scoring off those turnovers that they did create. They shot 77% in the second quarter and held the Demon Deacons to 1 for 14 shooting. Doing the calculation on that, that's about 7%, Jeff. That second quarter was spectacular,
That
was
was
it not,
pretty.
sir?
Yeah. Well, it was for us, not for Wake Forest.
Yeah.
That was. I mean, that I was kind of cringing for them. It was like, God, I feel bad for them because just such bad shooting. But yeah, you got to love what the Cardinals came out and did. A little slow in the first quarter, but made it happen in the second. And I was pretty happy with that. I wish the whole game had been that way. It was a little off and on otherwise, but um, certainly was a great second quarter. A lot of fun to watch.
And one of the things that was kind of unique about that second quarter too is that Walls had gone fairly deep into the bench, uh, non-starters but ones who play a lot for the Cards in Liz Dixon, Casa Robinson, and Alana Smith. They saw the majority of the minutes out there on the court out of the 50 minutes available to the players that Walls could have put in the second quarter. They took up 29 of the 50 minutes, so that's pretty impressive there. Uh, Wake failed to make a basket in the final 9:40 of the second quarter.
Yeah, all but 60 seconds of the second quarter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just like they scored, 20 seconds in. All right, what happened? Oh, I don't know. The basket was closed. We couldn't go. The Cards got 4 for 4 from Liz Dixon in the second quarter. The Cards had scored the Demon Deacons 10-0 in the paint. A very impressive effort there. 44-26 at halftime. Jeff Walls had already played 9 of the 12 available players he had dressed for this one, Jared. I know that we didn't see Norika Kono again. Still having some health issues, so they haven't come out and specifically said what her health issues are. My guess and some other informed guests down there who haven't gotten any official word on it from anybody seem to think it might be COVID. If it is, I certainly hope that she can get well soon.
Yeah, that'd be my guess too. Just the fact that we haven't even seen her out there, and it may not that she still has COVID as much as she's just got a lot of lingering effects, like we saw with Asia Dur, and how it took some time to recover. So, if COVID is the situation that we're dealing with Kono, we do wish her the best there.
Louisville also got a very spectacular first half from Haley Van Lith, who gave them 12 points on 5 for 7 shooting, Jeff, and also dished out 5 assists in there. Haley having a good game against the Demon Deacons for sure.
Yeah, she really did. Overall, 50% from 3-point range. She shot a better percentage from 3-point range than she did from overall. So that's always interesting to see. Dropped both free throws that she got. So yeah, it's a good game for her. Yeah, I was impressed. It was good to see her have a good game because she's had a little bit of these shooting struggles that we've had recently. It was good to see her start dropping some and really get, I'm sure, build a little confidence for her. So it's good to see that.
It is indeed, and certainly with the 3 games coming up. Well, actually, if you take a look at tomorrow's game, 4 games in 8 days for Louisville coming up. 3 of those on the road, so it's going to be a pretty tough test of things. Jumping from here to Miami, and then going over to take on a very mediocre Clemson team after that, finishing up in Syracuse. So all over the nation for the Cards after they play Duke on Sunday. But uh, continuing with the game of the second half, the Cards really started out strong in the second half, increased the lead to a 61-28 advantage with 3:47 to go in that quarter, and then that run was actually 40-6 since the end of the first quarter in that game. And then Jeff Walls, as he's like to do sometimes, stunned us all, Jared. He pulls Van Lith, Anxler, Dixon, and Hall, and puts in the Smiths, Alana and Kiana, Verhulst and Cochran, and Louisville would just total 2 more points in the remainder of the quarter. FSU scoring 9, but still comfortably in charge, 63-37 after three. Jared, I thought the move was a rather interesting for Walls to make that big a wholesale substitution.
Well, yeah, I mean, you had such a big lead over Wake Forest at the time, and that massive run there in the second quarter. You knew that if something happened and they got in trouble, you could probably bounce right back to where you needed. But you've got a lot of players you really need to get in and just get that playing time and get more experience and get more comfortable on the court, especially as we're starting to loom in the shadows of the postseason already. And you want to make sure you've got at any point players that you can throw out there, whether you run into situations in the tournament, whether it's foul trouble, illness, injury, you never really know. So you need to be prepared and have plenty of players that you can throw in at a moment's notice and feel okay that they'll be able to do their part. So I had no problem there, and I think a lot of it, especially for in terms of getting Alana and Peyton their minutes, is just the confidence boost. You want them to get out there and get some shots and do something good, and that way they know that they can do it going forward and more often. So those confidence boosts just for a few extra minutes can really mean a lot to a player.
The Cards cruising along comfortably after three, but they decided to play the fourth quarter anyway, and well, that was interesting.
Yeah.
Louisville uh, got forced into 7 Wake turnovers from Wake. The Cards went just 1 for 12 from the floor in the fourth quarter. And now let's give it what it is. Walls was trying a lot of different combinations in that final 10 minutes, but it's something I found very interesting, Jeff, after the game when he was innocently asked by one of the people in the post game locker in interview room about the flow of the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Jeff Walls immediately responded, "Flow? There wasn't any flow. Did you see a flow? We were backed up. We needed a plunger. We were constipated. There was no flow." Thought that was a unique response by him.
Yeah, it was the question really about the flow of the game, because that's a pretty clever way of asking a question about the officiating that lets the coach still answer it, I think. To be blunt, right? I mean,
Yeah,
oh, it was interesting. I was talking to a number of people, including some Twitter interactions, where people were like, I was about to say, actually, one person said that they were about to say that the officiating had been pretty good in that game through three quarters, and then the fourth quarter happened, and the wheels kind of fell off for the crew in blue. So yeah, we still need to do some work on this. This is embarrassing.
yeah, and let's give Wake credit where credit's due. They do have Jewel Spear on their team, Jared, and she's been, I think, a highlight and a shining spot for the Wake Forest Demon Deacons this season. I know that Jen Hoover would be in a lot more dire circumstances if she wasn't on that team, and she nailed a couple threes late against Louisville. Uh, Cutting the score actually down to a 12-point Louisville lead, 72-60. But the game was, I don't think, ever seriously in doubt and in question. It's just Wake played very, very strong in that fourth quarter against us, and Louisville, for like the second game in a row, kind of had a fourth quarter collapse.
Yeah, even not getting a chance to watch it, I really wasn't all that worried just based off the personnel that we had on the court. If Walls had felt ever any issues or threat that the game might be getting out of our hands, he would have quickly made enough changes to get his starting five, or what we also call his final five, back out there on the court without issue. But yeah, I mean, players are going to get hot sometimes and shoot well, and 22 points is a good mark there for Jewel Spear, and 5 for 11. Sometimes people just get hot back there, and what's that, about 44-45%. So that's a good shooting percentage from three, and you got to give her credit on that.
Certainly. So one of two players that we saw in this past week who came in and had a lot of success against Louisville on the court. Uh, as we like to do it on the website, is do a Fred report after each game that we play in. And free throw shooting is back, Jeff, back. 12 out of 14 for the Cards. An excellent 85, almost 86% there. I'll take that number any game, sir. How about you?
Yeah, I have no complaints on that number at all. That's, our standard is 70% is good. Obviously, we'd like to see it higher than that. 85 is 86 is uh, quite good. Love to see it at 90, but man, 86, no complaints about that whatsoever.
Rebanding was a bit of a question for the Cards. They did win the rebanding battle on that one, 34 to 33, but Wake out rebounded Louisville in the first and third quarters. Emily Inkster, you can always count on her coming in and getting some huge grabs, and she led Louisville with 8 rebounds in just like 20, 22, 23 minutes. But uh, what kind of bothered me on this one a little bit, Jared, is that Cochran and Dixon, who you consider primarily the Cards' bigs in a lineup, combined for just 8 rebounds in the game combined total.
Yeah, you don't want to see a combined 8 rebounds between your two bigs. That's not good, especially when they had a combined 35 minutes out there. So that's a pretty poor ratio there. And I know Liz had a solid scoring night with 12 points. And in a way, I guess you could say could make up for it a little bit, but um, it just was not their best night, and they weren't getting a lot of blocks and combined 0 assists between the two of them. So it's not like they were dishing it out to somebody that was open. So it's just maybe just an off night for them, and one of those things that you'll hit the film room and kind of review some stuff and see what changes need to be made, because I think it worked when they turn around and you look at how they performed against Florida State.
And taking a look at some of the other pluses in the game, certainly Louisville shot the ball well. 51% for the game is very impressive. And that was including that woefully cold first quarter. 51% for a total is very good. They shot it obviously quite well after the first quarter. Another thing I liked a lot here, Jeff, was 19 assists on 26 made baskets. Hey, that's excellent. I love that. But then again, you take a look at the 17 turnovers by the Cards, something that I don't think we should have had that many against the Wake Forest team.
Yeah, we talk about, a lot of people talk about assist to turnover ratio. We're still in the positive on that, or still above one on that, I guess is the way to put it mathematically. But so that's okay. But you certainly would like to have that be a higher ratio on there. 17 turnovers, that's a little sloppy. You got to give credit a little bit to Wake Forest for some of those. It's not going to be all of them. Some of them are going to be unforced, and those are the ones that I know drive coaches mad. So, um, I don't see on the stat sheet forced versus unforced, so it's a little hard to comment on that. But it there was a bit of a sloppy game, a lot of defense in it. So, yeah, it's,
It was a defensive
we
effort
still
that got Louisville there.
yeah,
Sure.
we still seem to be. It was still in both these games that we're talking about here today. Still saw places where we were throwing, like, one of the passes went to Walls, right?
Yeah.
He's not on the court. He's not a player. We're just still doing some of that. We saw that in the collapse in the fourth quarter versus NC State. Two straight shots just went sailing, 15 feet over the head of somebody into the bleachers, up into the stands. So, we got to get just better control on and more crisp passes and on target passes. That's going to help a lot, I think, if we can do that.
Defense, of course, being the key for the Cards in this one. Defense helped them create that at one time. 33-point lead, but then all of a sudden the defense decided it was going to, I don't know, go across the street to the Troll Pub or something, and did not show up in the fourth quarter very much at all, allowing Wake to eliminate 21 points of that lead. Uh, Second game actually in a row for the Cards were the fourth quarter. They just came out shell shocked. We saw it at NC State, and then we saw it again against Wake Forest. I'm certain that it was something that Walls and the coaches addressed in practice, Jared, the next couple of days after that game. But and obviously it looked better, and we'll get into that in just a bit. But that fourth quarter, you need to finish what you start here. And you take a look at what Clemson did to the Demon Deacons before we played them. Clemson held them to 44 points for the game. So it's a defense that's hot and cold, Jared.
Yeah, for the most part this year, I think the defense has been phenomenal. And then you get to times where I think what the issue's been is they just get comfortable. That's probably the best word to put it, is they just get too comfortable on the court. And we had a sizable lead, and that's going to happen. As you're like, we're blowing out a team that we're just at a better level than they are, and we're going to sit back and go on cruise control. And Wake Forest capitalized on it and did a great job. And I think even going all the way back to NC State at one point where we had that double-digit lead there for a little bit, and it was just one of those, feeling a little too comfortable, and you can't do that. You got to stick with your game plan and keep pushing it to the final buzzer. If you're up 30-plus points and there's a minute left in the game, then, I'll go on and pull back a little bit because I don't see anybody scoring that much in the final minute. But when you're leaving an entire 10-minute period to go, a lot can happen in those 10 minutes, and you can't just pull back and get reserved.
And as Jeff Walls very adeptly pointed out, he said, if you're going to get those minutes, you've got to prove to me that you deserve those minutes. He says, my players are asking for minutes all the time. He said, so when I put them in there to get them extended minutes, I need to see something out of them to indicate to me and the staff, hey, we don't have any problems putting you in for a 5 or 6 minute stretch because you've shown us in past games that you're worthy of getting those minutes. I don't know how well he graded them out after that Wake Forest game, but certainly some of the reserves that got in, Jeff, I don't know if they put any stars next to their name on, yes, I deserve a bunch more minutes.
Yeah, I think I continue to be impressed. To speak about one in particular, I continue to be impressed with Peyton Verhulst and what she contributes. She's still got some rough spots. She's still getting adjusted to some things, but I'm seeing some good things out of her. I did part of my article a few weeks ago. I was talking about how she's out statting her playing time, comparison of stats versus playing time. Um, give her credit for that much. I think she's doing pretty well, and we're starting to see her minutes increase. And Walls on the post-game radio interview on Thursday commented about her probably starting to get some more minutes as a result of that. So absolutely, you got to show it. You got to demonstrate it in practice too. It's not just on the court during games, but in practice as well. We all know Wallace puts a lot of emphasis on that. So starting to see that out of a few, some others maybe not so much. And I think you'll start to see the lineup and the substitution rotation start to reflect that a little bit more as we go deeper and deeper into this season.
You practice like you play. That's the old adage. Yep. And so, and especially with Verhulst in mind here, let's fast forward it then to Thursday when the Cards brought in Florida State to visit. A Florida State team that I think most of the league is kind of scratching their head on and going, they're not having such a great season. They came into this one to the KFC Yum Center at 9-8, and they were 3-4 in conference. An FSU team that we've seen better out of in the past. Peyton Verhulst got 53 seconds. Not in a quarter, not in a half, but in the entire game on this one. And that was a bit of a surprise to me, Jared.
Yeah, Walls has talked about how she's been improving and starting to earn her minutes, and then you get to a game like this, and then she doesn't even see a full minute on the court. And the seconds that she played were really just to come in, and I think it was either to give Kiana or Haley a quick breather and a timeout, knowing that there was a media timeout coming up or an end of a quarter coming up right before that. So it's really odd. But we don't see what happens behind the scenes. We're not there for workouts, and we're not there for practices, and we're not there sitting in class. So maybe there was something else going on. Maybe they saw something in practice that they just didn't like out of her. Maybe she was having trouble with the film on this. There's a lot of things that could contribute to this. But, I mean, I don't think it really affected her mood. You looked over at the bench, and she was still sitting there with Purcell for most of the game, kind of talking and analyzing the game. And he was definitely pointing stuff out to her here and there and been like, here's what I'm seeing. And I think that certainly helps because you've got players who are just really eager to learn and want to get better, and she's one of those players. And she kind of, in terms of her work ethic and mindset, even from the bench, reminds me of Lindsay Duval, who's constantly there with Purcell, kind of the same thing, and analyzing. And those are the types of players you want, the ones who want to get better and will do anything they can to learn and just have that positive attitude. But I think we'll see more minutes tomorrow.
I will jump in a little bit. This is the game where you jogged my memory a little bit in talking about that. The post game Thursday was where he said that Peyton is playing well. She's going to see more increasing minutes. He did get asked explicitly about her by Nick Curran on the radio show. Do I have the right Nick Curran? Yeah, Nick Evans is that.
Yeah,
Nick Curran. God, man, I have so much trouble with their two names. Sorry. It was asked. Nick did ask explicitly about Peyton Verhulst. He did say that, and he did say also, she may have only played, less than a minute, but her impact during that minute was actually quite strong, quite good for the short period of time she played. She had a pretty good impact on what happened. So
yeah, the Cards were +4.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like we scored 4 points in the less than a minute she was out there. So, pretty good. I think the two of you may have gone back for the media interviews while he was saying that for the radio one. So I didn't know if you had heard that. So
no, we did not hear that part
Yeah.
of it. But, so let's see what happens to her now as Duke comes into town. A couple of things about this game, Jeff. First of all, there's a young lady down in Tallahassee by the name of Morgan Jones. I think she may be running for mayor down there in November of next year. 28 points against the Cards, 6 rebounds, 33 strong minutes in the game. And it's like I specifically asked Casa Robinson, was the game plan here just to let her have hers and shut everybody else down? and she kind of just smiled. She said, no, I assure you, we were trying to guard her.
Yeah, she's good. She's incredibly good.
But she said, and I've heard it in other people say it as well. And Casa came right out and said it. But she's a pro. She's next level, and she's just got a heck of a game. And I think one of the things that we were happy about is she didn't go for 40 on us.
Yeah,
and she's a couple more shots. They could have got the ball to her a little bit more. But she was outstanding. Another thing about this one, Olivia Cochran and Emily Ainsler, a combined 36 points out of Louisville 75. And I don't know if you can classify Ainsler into one position because it seems like she plays all over the court for Louisville, but Cochran being one of our posts. A very strong effort out of those two. And then let's give Liz Dixon credit too for 7 minutes or 7 points and 5 rebounds in 13 minutes. The post play played well, Jeff, against FSU.
Yeah, and we saw a little bit of the Dixon and Cochran in there together playing, and it's a different look from what we're used to really seeing with this team. But it sometimes works, and this is I think some of the genius that Jeff Walls brings to the game. We talk about him being mad scientist in X's and O's, but he's willing to look at it and go, wait a minute, this is where we're weak. Let's change the lineup to address that a little bit. He does that incredibly well. One of the best coaches in the game at it, I think. And I think that's what we saw here. We were struggling with some of the size and strength. And so, all right, well, let's put these two in together. We know they can play well together. We've seen it before. It's just not all that common for us. And man, it looked pretty good while they were on the court. They were together. They were doing a lot of great things.
Ainsler had just a totally outstanding overall game in this one, Jared. We mentioned the 19 points. She added to that 12 rebounds. She had 5 block shots. Just a total effort by her out there. And all this in 32 minutes. Haley Van Lith actually saw 38 minutes in this game. May have been a few more than I think Walls wanted to originally play her, but she was out there. But Emily Ainsler just basically came out and said, okay, guess what? We're not losing here on my court. I'm going to see if I can have a game. And I would have been the center of attention if it hadn't been for Morgan Jones, Jared.
Yeah, I agree. Well, first, that Haley saw too many minutes, especially when you have a big stretch of several games in a row coming up, that I think you kind of want to maybe limit players to about the 32, 33-minute mark. And it's not that they're not conditioned. It's just so many games in that short stretch, you don't want to burn a player out and exhaust them to the point that you just can't compete by the time the last game rolls around. So I think we'll see those numbers drop starting this Sunday and then moving forward, at least for this next stretch. But then also, like you said, Emily had a great game, 5 for 6 from the free throw line. So that would meet our shooting percentage, what we need for the Fred report. And she shot about 50% from the floor. 19 points, 12 rebounds, 5 blocks in there. That's incredible right there. Only 4 turnovers as opposed to when you're looking at getting a couple
She had
assists, but
half the
also the
team's
steal.
turnovers too, Jared. Half the team's turnovers.
Yeah.
They only had 8 for the game.
Right, but she also
She was funny in the post
plays
game.
plays
Yeah,
aggressive.
yeah,
Yeah. Oh, she's always great, and she's very critical of herself, which
Yeah.
I that kind of reminds me of both Dana and Asia Dur, the way she's so critical of herself in the post game and when she looks at it, but how aggressive she plays, and then I mean she's trying to draw in multiple defenders so she can find a teammate who's going to be open somewhere. So you're going to see turnovers like that, and she likes to push the pace. And Walls constantly talks about pushing the pace, and her and McCoss are ones that really want to keep it moving. And when you play that fast-paced game, you're going to have turnovers. So I'm not going to really fret over 4 turnovers when you look at the rest of her stat line and how well she played.
And it was addressed in the post game media interview with the players as well, where somebody brought up, "Hey, you only had 8 turnovers in this game," and Casa was up there with Emily, and they kind of both looked at each other and go, "That's all? That's great." And so they asked, why so few? And she goes, "Because we run when we make turnovers in practice the next day." And Emily came out and said, "I'm tired of running."
Yeah. That was where she said, "Yeah, I was half of them."
And she said, "I had half of them," and then she kind of muttered to herself, "I guess I'm running a lot more this week than anybody else." But it was a point in practice where they were stopping play if somebody made a turnover, and they ran, and then they picked up play again in practice. So players like anybody else, sure you want to run and perform in a game, but in practice you don't want to run all that much. Let's be honest with you. I've never met a player at UofL, with the possible exception of maybe somebody who plays soccer who loves to run for 40 minutes. Okay, the Cards.
I don't know. We've had some cross country stars in the past, so you never know there.
Well, that's true too, but that's a little different vein there. But another that impressed me in this game as well was this first quarter was a little slow for Louisville and Florida State. Only 23 combined points between the two teams. The Cards leading at the end of the first quarter, 13-10. It took them a while to get that lead, though, Jared. And one of the things that I kind of liked about this is that Louisville actually also had a good fourth quarter where they outscored FSU 18-14.
Yeah, the slow start didn't really bother me. And I was kind of talking this with like Cindy and William and Rochelle and some of the photographers there with me. And Florida State's success in the past has come from a much slower paced game. They'll slow down opposing teams on offense and force them to utilize a lot of that shot clock and then get kind of forced into taking a really bad shot. And then Florida State will come down and kind of with the ball movement and be patient and wait to find the player who can get the good look. And that's really how they've beaten us in the past because we love to run and kind of the gun and go type offense. And when we can't get those transition points, which has been a big thing for us just all year this year, it hurts us. And Florida State definitely did a good job with the press and kind of keeping on us. And they're kind of late first quarter and moving in the second quarter, we kind of figured out how to beat that a little bit and get more of our style of play and pick up the tempo. And that's where we started to pull ahead. So I wasn't too surprised just because of the Florida State style. But it happens that Florida State's still known for being a pretty solid defensive team, even though they're struggling this year.
That and also consider into the fact that the Cards, Jeff, could not hit the broadside of a barn with a ammunition salvo out of a BAR, going 1 for 10 to start the game out. It started out fine. Emily nails the 3. Everybody's happy, and we miss our next 9 shots. In fact, we didn't put in another basket until Liz Dixon got one with about 4 minutes to go.
Yeah, we were 5 for 17 in the first quarter. That's not brilliant. For sure. 2 for 5 from beyond the arc. Not spectacular. 1 for 3 from the free throw line too. So that definitely doesn't match up to that 70% threshold. But yeah, that was a rough first quarter. We still somehow, I'm still not real sure how, managed to come out of the first quarter slightly ahead of Florida State. Um, yeah, I don't know if we were just our defense was enough just to prevent them from taking too many shots. They were 33% in the first quarter, and nothing from beyond the arc. But I just think we were just able to do defensive stops, so they didn't even get attempts because their percentages were better, and we ended up with a higher score. Neither team looked spectacular in the first quarter, that's for sure.
And I think another very important sideline and story of this game was Morgan Jones for Florida State. As I had the chance to kind of chat with the Florida State athletic director who was sitting next to Jared's fiancee Katie at the game. She was down there. He and I were chatting back and forth. I just said, Morgan Jones equals transfer portal? And he just started chuckling. I said, we'll trade you 2 for 1. And he kind of looked at me and he grinned. He said, okay, can the two be Van Lith and Inksler? And I'm like, that's a tough bargain. But she was incredible against us. 11 for 18 from the floor. Those 28 points, none of them from the 3-point range. She was hitting mid-range jumpers like she had just created them.
Yeah.
And amazing for her. And also 6 or 7 from the free throw line, but just an amazing effort by a ball player who unfortunately is on a team where there just aren't a lot of other standouts beside her. So.
Yeah, and a little bit of a scary moment in the fourth quarter. She went down, and it looked to me initially like she was holding her knee, which is always a scary
That's what I thought.
sight to see. But it turns out she was cramping. Apparently, is what we think was happening. Thanks to Jared for being on the spot and having a little bit of better information than me up in Rose CC. But yeah, I mean, glad that she's presumably okay. I presume she's not having any long-term effects from that. So always a little scary moment to see that somebody goes down and starts reaching for their knee, and it's like, no, don't want to see that. So, but yeah, she's a very, very fine player. She's got a bright future ahead of her. And I'll be interested to see what she does in the WNBA when she gets to that point too. I have no doubt she'll be playing there.
Oh, I have no doubts as well. Yeah. And then probably will have a very lucrative career overseas if she wants to pursue that too in the off seasons of the WNBA. She was a one-woman wrecking crew on the Cards, and one of the things that we noticed about her is that there is no fear, Jared, in what she does. She doesn't hesitate. She doesn't pull it back out and think about a shot. When Morgan decides it's time to put the ball up, heaven help you if you're Gardner, because she's going to the hoop.
Yeah, that's a shooter's instinct, and that's exactly what she is. And she's a scorer, and that's why she's going to be successful in the WNBA. Is she doesn't second guess it. You've got to trust your gut instinct at times, and that hesitation is going to allow a defender to catch up or get in your face. So, I mean, you get the ball, you got the luck, take it, go. And when you know how to shoot the ball, and if you've been hitting your gym time like you need to and getting your shots in, then I mean, there shouldn't be much to worry about. So it's going to be fun to watch her in the WNBA, and it's going to be more fun watching her when she's not going up against UofL.
That's for sure. Maybe she'll face up against Angel McCoughtry up in Minnesota.
Yeah. I was watching her play, and I really kind of looked at her and said, she is reminding me of Angel McCoughtry. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Not just in her style of play, because similarities in that respect too, but a little bit in her looks. She's got, I hate to say this, but she's got those spindly looking legs that Angel McCoughtry used to look like she had, right? She first came out the court, I thought she's going to break in half, but she's much more robust than I gave her credit for initially. And obviously, like I said, we saw she was a very, very fine player, and I do think there's some similarities between those two, and they're not just in their playing styles, but looks and presentation as well.
And her mid-range jumper is textbook.
Yeah.
If you ever want to teach a high school player how to shoot a mid-range jumper, just show them about 20 straight minutes of Morgan Jones putting them up. She is textbook in her form. Her release is soft. There's never anything thrown up there trying to break down the backboard or anything.
Yeah.
She has definitely mastered the fine art of shooting the ball from the 8 to 10 foot range. Great stuff for her. But Cards up 36-25. It was a battle from FSU in this one, Jared, so far. But the Louisville lead was 11. Florida State said, we made the trip up here. We might as well get a little something while we're here. Ended up cutting that Louisville lead to 40-38 in just 4 minutes to start the third quarter. That's when I was beginning to get very nervous. And of course, your fiance Katie sitting next to me was bouncing up and down in her chair and cheering and about ready to run out on the court and high five everybody.
Yeah, she was definitely cheering her Knowles on, and she went to the UofL Florida State game when it was women's soccer back in the fall. So they got the win there, and we got the win now, so we're even. Sadly, we don't play in softball this year, so we can't get our tiebreaker. But hey, I was happy with the win Thursday.
It certainly had to be, I think. A third quarter where the Knowles actually outscored us by 2, 23-21. It brought the fourth quarter, and I think one of the things maybe in the back of my mind, it was, okay, are we going to see another fourth quarter collapse here where we can't do anything? Fortunately, it didn't happen, Jeff. The Cards actually won the fourth quarter, 18-14. A 9-point lead going into it. Of course, they ended up winning the game by a total of 13. We got some good efforts. Keanu Smith had some nice shots during it. Jeff Walls had gone fairly deep into the lineup with 8 players, and maybe that was his regular 8 rotation I was seeing out there, Jeff, in that game. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
I think the biggest change in the rotation that we may have seen during this game is we didn't see all that much of Chelsea Hall.
Yeah.
She did not have a great game, I have to say. I think she's fantastic. I think she's a wonderful player. She was off on Thursday. She did not have a great game, so she wasn't out there all that much. She only played 17 minutes out of the game, which is definitely lower than her normal level. Normal sort of rotation that we kind of see. Like you said, Keanu Smith always out there, always with a great stroke from anywhere in the gym, and sometimes from outside of it, maybe. It continued to do Keanu Smith things. That's just what she does. She scores, and she's a pretty decent defensive player as well. So no liability on that side. But she would be the yen to Mikasa Robinson's Yang, the offensive player that's okay on defense versus Makasi, who's the defensive player that can, occasionally contribute some things on offense as well. So, yeah, it's a good pair between them.
Some of the side numbers on the Cards once again demonstrated that free throw shooting. Oh yeah, we're great at that. 16 for 19 in this one, 84%, which is very, very good in that aspect there. Rebounding was a push. Both teams with 35. Angstler, as you might well expect, led all players. 12 rebounds, 7 of them on the offensive board. So a very good effort there. We've talked about slow fourth quarter starts in the past. This time it was a slow first quarter start. But I think the effort and execution after that was quite good. And I loved seeing Dixon and Olivia Cochran out there at the same time on the court. That was fun for me, Jared. Defense, once again, kind of pulls this one through for the Cards, except for, of course, on Morgan Jones, who I do not think that most people in the NBA could guard effectively. She was something else.
Yeah, she's just an all-around really good player, and I think that Florida State would probably only be sitting at about 4, maybe 5 wins this year without her. So give her all the credit in the world because she's definitely their star player, and I think if they can maybe get a few more players to contribute a little bit more around her, they've still got a shot to make the NCAA tournament, if you ask me.
And just real quickly as well, give us a Katie report. How did she like it? Did she have fun? did she give you hell about anything on the way home?
I think what would have made it better for her is if her team had won. It would have made it it would have made it a little bit worse for us. But I think just the experience and getting to go down and get the free food, which I thought the food was quite excellent.
They did a good
Thursday,
job on
yeah, it's one of their better meals. Yeah, they do feed us media for those who don't know, and they've often got good food. But and then we kind of did, I want to say, our world tour. We went around the arena and get the social hour in, and she got to talk to a lot of different people and some folks who have maybe not met her, haven't seen her in a while, and a lot of people wanted to see the ring. So I knew we had to get there early for this game for that, and then it lucked out that she got to hang out and sit by the Florida State athletic director and one of their multimedia digital media team members. So it gave her some connections there too.
And I got more than one question. Why are you sitting next to a girl from Florida State? Why hadn't Sonya there?
Oh, I gotta say, from 3/4 of the way across the arena where I sit from where you all were, I look down there and I'm like, I see you, Paul, and then I look to to your left, my right, and I'm like, is that Daryl? Right? It just that far away, I couldn't quite see.
And with the mask on, yeah, I mean,
didn't
even
think
more.
it
Yeah.
was, but I couldn't figure out who else it would be. So yeah, that was.
I had actually smuggled in one of the FSU women's soccer players, and I'm trying to get her to transfer.
I did joke with her a little bit. I said, well, if your heart stops during the game, at least with the band right there behind you, it's going to kickstart your heart again.
An instant defibrillator right there. Boom. Yeah, that bass will roll right through you because they have it on an amplifier, and the guy definitely turns it up to 11.
Yes, he does.
It is. It's like, a fib machine. It's just like, like I said, if you have ADD, Katie, this is probably not the place for you to be. You've got cheerleaders dancing all around you. You've got a band blaring in your ear for half the game behind you. And, oh, yes, sometimes players will make impromptu stops and jump up on the table in front of you and demonstrate.
Yeah.
I'm chasing the loose ball. I don't care what's in my way.
Usually named Mikasa.
Yeah, or Haley Van Lith.
I had Van Lith on a couple of links. There's got no.
That's for sure. The time that she stood up in front of me and just kind of jumped up on the table, looked around, said, "Oh, we're still playing. I'll see you later."
Yeah.
And ran back out on the court. It's like I mentioned to her after the game on that one. Haley, the next time we want to get together, let's just go have a cup of coffee or something. You don't have to do that. A good win for the Cards. It brings in the last game of our 3-game homestand coming up tomorrow, where we bring in the Duke Blue Devils to the KFCM Center. As the guys mentioned, originally this one was, I think, scheduled for earlier in the day, but they moved it to 3 because ESPN said, hey, we'll show this one. Forget the ACC network. This is ours. We want this. And I think that it's a Duke team coming in here with a couple questions that they might have. They got pretty well ramrodded by UNC the other night, okay? And UNC is a good team, don't get me wrong. But Duke has got a ton of talent here, and they've got one of the premier players in the WNBA in Carol Lawson coaching them now. You would think there would be some insights and things that she could lay on them and give to them. But, Jared, I look at this Duke team, and I hate to say it, but I'm not impressed.
They've shown really good spurts, and then they show other spurts where it looks like it's just a team that's a bunch of players that have come from different places and been thrown together real quick, which is really what Duke's been, is based off the transfer portal, that they just haven't had the time to play together yet. So I think they're struggling just due to the fact they don't have that under their belt yet. And the more you kind of play with each other and play together and hang out together, you mesh better. And I think that's been their biggest problem so far. They were, to me, overhyped when the whole Kara Lawson's coming in, all these players are coming in. It just felt a little overhyped to me, and I don't want to discredit Kara Lawson for anything that she's done, because it's definitely difficult to come in and as a newer head coach and trying to rebuild a program. But I don't know. It's just, when I look at the Duke versus Louisville matchup, I feel like we should be able to beat them pretty soundly. I think the storyline I'm going to be following is more the return of Elizabeth Balagoon and
And
how
that,
that
yeah,
goes over.
I agree. Yeah.
exactly what I was going to get into here with Jeff there. A couple of interesting sidebars in this one, Jeff. Kara Lawson is a questionable for this game,
Right. Yeah.
currently under protocols.
Yeah. They're saying protocols. Presumably that's COVID. Nobody knows for sure, but probably.
That's what we're all thinking, yeah.
Yeah. And then we do have, former Louisville Cards, Elizabeth Balagoon and Nia Green both coming back into the KFCM Center for the first time. It's just a lot of unknowns. I hope that the crowd will be respectful of them. I think they will. We've got a great crowd, great fan base that is supportive and positive of things like that in general. And, wish them well and hey, cheer for them when they're here to say, hey, we recognize the impact you had while you were here and support that. And then, we've got obviously the Kara Lawson question: will she be there? And I think there's still some question about how she's going to do as a head coach, right? Because she's never been in coaching before, is to my knowledge, right? Certainly never been a head coach, right? She's obviously a very well-known name in the basketball world, but she was a player. She played on national teams. Played obviously at Tennessee. Had great experience there. Lots of time in the WNBA. She was very, very good.
And a very good commentator, too.
Right. And then went on to do commentary and color calls with ESPN a lot. And again, very good at that. Absolutely. I have huge respect for it. But this is her first time as a head coach. She really doesn't have a huge coaching pedigree. So I think there's still some questions on how effective she's really going to be in that role. I believe she will be good. But it may take a little bit of time to get settled into the role. So we'll see.
Duke being a program that will obviously give coaches a long time to prove what they're worth. Remember Joanne P. McCauley, who seemed to be down there for years with fading teams each year, but they still gave her another year, gave her another year, gave her another year. Coach K, they were ready to fire him after 2 seasons. They're probably glad they didn't, keeping him around. So it'll be fun to see. Yeah, I'm interested to look at the whole coming back into the KFCM Center, Elizabeth Balagoon. I would pray, like you do, that the fans don't boo her. Don't get on her about anything. She made a decision, okay?
Yeah.
She wanted a little more playing time, and she's getting it, okay? She's happy. Let her be happy. The Nia Green syndrome, to me, is a different story. I think she went to Duke with maybe the allure and the potential of playing some. That hadn't happened for her, unfortunately, with the Blue Devils either, being in one of the reserve roles and not seeing a lot of court time. But certainly, I think it's going to be a fun afternoon out there. The weather should be better tomorrow, so you should be able to drive on the highways with no worries and come on down for this one. Should be a lot of fun. Something else that was going on. I don't know if you got tickets for this or not, Jeff, but the softball banquet is down there tomorrow at noon.
I have not yet. I need to speak with my mother about this. So if she's listening, we need to have a conversation about that because I would kind of like to go, but coordinating my getting down there with other people that typically go with me who may not be interested. I don't know. So we'll see.
I found it interesting that they decided to have 2 major events on the same day like that, and they're having them both in the same facility. The softball banquet being up on the upper level of the KFCM Center up there. I can't remember which room it's in, but it's up there.
Yeah, something Hickman, I think.
Yeah, the Hickman camp room, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe that's where it is. I will not be attending the banquet. One of the first ones I've missed in a while. And unfortunately, it's just a matter of circumstance. If it had been on any other day, yeah, I would have probably gone and done it, but just can't make this one, unfortunately, for that reason. But I don't know. I look at this game. I don't know. We're getting close on time here, but I look at this game and I see 3 major factors on this. First of all, are we going to be able to get the production out of the bigs like we got in our last game? Is Inkster going to go off and have the usual game that she does? She's certainly capable of it. I don't think Balagoon's going to be a defensive stopper on her. and I don't know of anybody else on the Duke squad that's going to be able to shut her down. And if Cochran and Dixon can put in a performance like they have obviously for the Florida State game, and have they done all through season, I'd like to see both of them in there again together for stretches of time. The second big factor I'm looking at here is Keanu Smith. Which Keanu are we going to see? The one that puts in 22 points and has a great game, or the Keanu Smith that goes 3 for 13 and ends up with 8 points in 30 minutes? Which Keanu Smith is going to show up? I'm hoping it's the Keanu Smith that scores well and does a lot of good things for us. We certainly will need her against a pretty decent Duke backcourt. The third factor, obviously, in this one is going to be the presence of Kara Lawson. If she's not there, you know, it makes a big difference to a team, I think, when your head coach is not there and all of a sudden you're relying on an assistant coach or an associate coach that may have been running you in practice. I wish you run things differently than Kara. Uh, what will be the attitude and the mindset of the team? I mean, they're coming up here, they just had their tail handed to them by North Carolina. Obviously, they're looking for some revenge, guys. But, Jared, I think Kara Lawson's a huge factor in this game.
Yeah, if she's there and available to coach, it's going to be a closer game. And if she's not there and she's not able to be on the court to coach, I think UofL's going to have a much bigger advantage. I mean, I'd still rather her be there just because I want to be able to see her coach in person and kind of get more of the vibe and her style of how she is. Because it's fun to watch other coaches during games. I don't know if you ever kind of like look over for
I do indeed.
a minute or two and just kind of see how they act and how they react throughout the game and what their style is. Because it's really fun and it's neat to watch. So I would much rather her be there just for that aspect.
One of my favorites on that, obviously, Jeff was always watching Quentin Hillsman.
Yeah.
That was the show for me. Everything else was secondary. Oh, we're up by 10. That's great. Look at Q. Oh, my gracious. But so, like I said, kind of wrap it up here. And we didn't get the time today to get into track and field. I know that's obviously currently going on right now. We didn't get a chance to talk about swimming. Certainly read Case's article today at the Cardinal Couple website to give you an idea of those. You can jump online and get results on those if you want to follow along with that. And with that being said, I think we're just ready to get into some final thoughts now, guys. Let's go ahead and let's see. Since you weren't here last week, Jared, you get to go first. Final thoughts.
Yeah, I think my final thoughts just gonna be how excited I am that a lot of our spring sports are starting to quickly approach, and that we've still got winter sports with basketball going on for a while, and just I got my schedule laid out, and how absolutely insane it's going to be, especially throughout February and March for me with just a lot of crazy stuff going on. But I love getting out to all these UofL games and taking pictures, and I'm excited. And hopefully, it's going to be a lot of successful seasons for many of our Cardinal squads.
Katie is the most patient woman in the world.
She likes her peace and quiet at home. It works out.
There you go. Jeff, what you got for me?
Yeah, I have been watching the live stats on the high jump. Obviously, I've spoken in the past about Emily Scott, former volleyball player, is now doing high jumps. So I've kind of been keeping an eye on that. They are doing jumps at the 1.69 meter height at this point. Louisville has 4 entrants in this event. One has already passed the 1.69 height, Soledad Jean, and a couple have. One has a miss at this height. One hasn't made an attempt at this height yet. Emily has a miss at this height as well. So, but she's already cleared 1.59 and 1.64, which is, I think 1.64 might be a personal best for her. Of course, she's only competed in one other event before this, so that's not that much of a surprise. So, anyway, quick high jump catch up.
Yeah, outstanding, Emily. I don't know how big a surprise it was to everybody because we've had dual sport athletes before
Right.
at UofL, but
And we knew she could jump, right?
well,
I mean,
definitely on the volleyball team, yeah,
Yeah.
she got to have some hops in her somewhere,
Yeah.
but so very happy for her being able to do that. I think my favorite of all time was probably Patricia Barlow.
Yeah,
who played basketball so well for Jeff Walls.
for 4 years, and then
Yeah,
said,
and then
"I'm gonna go play shortstop."
You know what? I think I can play some softball, Coach Pearsall. Let me in there.
She did.
And did well. Yeah,
Yeah,
Patricia. And you could tell that she loved it too.
yeah. Took 1
She was,
yard too during that season too. It was good.
yeah, I didn't remember that, but I just
Yeah,
remember that she was always out there just giving it her all.
yeah.
And certainly like that. Final thoughts on me? It's probably due to my own negligence and some other things I've had going on, but I really do need to get down and have some preseason talks with both Holly April and Scott Teeter as the softball and lacrosse seasons are rapidly approaching us. I think in lacrosse's case, I think they start in 2 weeks, and they start theirs with a West Coast swing. Well, not exactly West Coast swing, but Rocky Mountain swing, where they'll actually go out and play Denver University and then Colorado University back to open their season. Need to get down and talk to Scott a little bit about some things. Always a fun thing to do it. I guess one of the things that'll be different this year is on how we will do these. I'm not sure if it's going to be where I can actually sit down across from him in his office and talk to him, or whether we're going to be hooked up on Microsoft Teams or the phone or something like that. The same thing obviously applies with Holly April, although I would not be opposed to sitting out there in the Alma bleachers and just talking to her 6 feet away. Okay, that'd be fine. However, they want to work the protocols on that. But final thoughts from me. Special thoughts right now to Lori Cody Harmon, who also is a very good sports athletic or sports information director for not only softball but also does field hockey as well. Her mother not doing too well these days, so keep Lori's mom in your thoughts and prayers as times go on. And of course, she's busy trying to work with this track meet as well today down there. I know that's got to be on the back of her mind with her mom. So certainly keep Lori and her family in your thoughts and prayers and do that. But that will do it for us. If there's any type of things that you want to comment about Cardinal Couple, that's why we've got a comment section. Jump in there and put stuff in there. Other people do. You can too. It's easy and it don't cost you nothing. If you want to get an idea across to us, we accept those there. Until then, we will catch you here 11 o'clock next week unless you know something I don't. Everybody have a great weekend, and it's warming up tomorrow. Be thankful for that.